everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today we are going to be testing out an antique or possibly vintage, but I think antique gadget, and that is the Simplicity Plaiter. It looks like this, and it also comes with this. And I found mine on eBay fairly recently when I was looking for pleating boards or other pleating tools because, as we all know, as sewers, pleats, they're really annoying to do. Like, they just take a really long time. So why not find some sort of a gadget that can help you with those pleats? So that is the idea behind this Simplicity Plaiter. And mine actually happened to come with the page of instructions too, which I thought was really fantastic that it came with that. So because it comes with this page of instructions, I decided that in today's video, we would just go ahead and try all of the instructions and see how good they are, how clear they are, if they actually make pleats like they say they're supposed to, all of that. Now, I'm not exactly positive when this plaiter dates to, but I saw evidence that this existed even in the 19-teens. I don't know when they stopped making this plaiter, but it was definitely around in the 19-teens. I just kind of feel like this and this don't feel that old. I'm thinking more like 30s to 50s, somewhere in here, but again, I can't be sure. If you have a better idea of when this Simplicity Plaiter might date to, do please leave me a comment down below of what your thoughts might be. So there are a bunch of different pleat styles on here, and some of them we get pictures for and some of them we don't. So we have the basic pleats, which they call side plates. They really use plates in place of pleats in all of this verbiage. I'm not really sure when that terminology changed, but I do find that it's interesting that it's plates, P-L-A-I-T-S, as opposed to pleats in all of these. So we have on here side plates, which is your standard pleats, and then we also have 10 other types of pleats as well, and again, some of them are pictured on here, but I figured that we would just try all of them and see what happens, see which ones are successful, which ones maybe aren't successful, because we really have a range. We have your standard side pleats, box pleats, etc. We also have scallops. We even have one that is called princess collar that really looks like an Elizabethan ruff. And we even have fluting on here. So supposedly this little gadget can do all of that. I have prepped some cotton strips. I have a feeling I'm going to need to prep more than just what I've done, and I've done various widths and lengths to try all of these out on, but let's go ahead and try out all of these pleats and see what happens. So let's start with the general instructions, which say always lay goods right side up on the plaiter. Plait thin and stiff goods with a thin piece of cloth underneath. When the plaiter is filled, turn it over, lay a damp cloth on the goods, and press with a hot iron until dry. Flat plating should be pressed again after removing from the plaiter. Except for plain side plates or plain box plates, when pressing, rest the ends of plaiter on blocks or books, leaving a space between the plaiter and table. When using the plaiter for the first time, it is advisable to try out a design with a sample of material. So I have my plaiter, which it shows the plaiter in use here, so it's supposed to go away from you with the thick metal side away from you, up like that. So that's how I have it right now with the plaiter here. This is the little piece that presses into the plaiter, and it said that for wide pleats, like when you're doing your standard side plates, for wide, deep pleats, you can use this side, and for narrow, little pleats, you can use this side. And that basically just goes and pushes the plates in between these bars, these metal bars that are across here. I did grab 2 large books so that I can prop this up when I go to do those other pleats. And I am going to grab a damp cloth, but I also wonder if, because of the fact that I have a steam iron, I wonder if that's necessary or if I could just use the steam. But basically you put the plates in from this side and then you flip it like this to actually press the pleats down. And I guess, again, most of those will wind up being propped up. So I suppose you lose a little width when you do that because this side doesn't have that nice wide metal side like the other one does. So I suppose you can't quite use like the whole pleater. You have to have at least enough that it will support the pleater, maybe like that or so. Okay, so I am going to start with the side plates, and the side plates read, place the plaiter with a strip of cloth before you in the position illustrated, as in this position. With the gauge, which is this, push the cloth between the two bars nearest you. This operation forms a single plate. Holding the plate in place with the fingers of the left hand, push the goods between the next two bars. Repeat the operation until the plaiter is filled. Turn wrong side up and press all plates in the same direction. Use narrow side of gauge for shallow plates and wide side for deep side plates and box plates. So we're going to try the wide side first. I have my fabric right here. And so just to start with the pushing through, it says to start with the two nearest you, and it appears to get pushed in like this. I feel like this is already, like I've lost the end here. So maybe I need to start with a bit more sticking off the end so that it doesn't get eaten that way. Okay, so that is the full width. This doesn't seem like it wants to. Okay, that's the full width. Oh, it just dawned on me. So maybe the key is that I have to press straight down because this is actually the depth of this plaiter. So right now I'm touching the table underneath by doing like this, whereas I was trying to go in like this before because that's what I thought it showed on the diagram. So let's try that again. We're gonna go straight down. Still wants to take it unevenly. Okay, and then we hold that and do the next one. I feel like these will wind up being really close together. And I guess the key is to make sure that this is staying very straight on the plaiter, which it does not want to. Oh my gosh, these are like the deepest pleats. I'm gonna do a handful of these deep plates, and then I think I will switch to narrow plates because I feel like these deep plates are just way too close together for the depth of these pleats. I think that this would be something that would better off having skips in between. That seems like plenty of the deep pleats, so let's go ahead and try some narrow plates for the remainder. Oh, these are way easier. That's probably about good to give it a go with. Okay, so as you could see, I had been really like holding down this area while poking the gauge into each one. And now we go ahead and we flip this to the other side. This one we don't need to put up on books. So it said to very carefully hold your pleats in place while you flip to the other side. So I went and I got a piece of fabric wet because I feel like this would be great with maybe a tea towel or something, but I don't seem to own any tea towels. So it does not specify which direction to press these. And I'm not sure if one's better than the other. I just feel like this area down here is too thick to really get pressed. Like there's just too many of them too close together. I think we're gonna press away. That seems like maybe the best idea. So we're gonna press away. I'm gonna put this maybe a bit too wet cloth on them and see what happens. Sizzle. I feel like my pleats are very much different sizes, so I don't know if that really worked at all, but I dried off that section of cloth. So now it says carefully remove them from the plaiter and then press again. I don't know the best way to remove them. Oh no, these are not nice crisp pleats at all. And they're like definitely different sizes. And I don't really know how to best remove them and make them stay the same. So I'm gonna kind of press as I remove them so that they can actually be flattened. Because the problem is that they're coming out with these edges round, more like flutes, than pleats, and they really got in there. I think the only way is to kind of pull each one individually and then reshape, but that seems like it completely defeats the purpose. Maybe these short ones come out easier. Okay, so this totally made flutes, not pleats. Like, look at the edging there. It's nicely like fluted. It looks kind of like the crenellations on a castle, but I would not call that pleated. So I guess now we just have to kind of reshape those pleats, those very irregular pleats somehow. Like, how did they get that irregular? Maybe the short pleats will be better, but I doubt it. Okay, so here is the results of our first side plates. Did not go well. I mean, like, these are so small, but I think they were supposed to be this depth because this gauge is way thicker than like any of these other ones. Well, they're completely irregular, so I don't know. They're completely all different sizes. But like this one seems the most like that one, which is the last I did. So probably what happened was as I was going through, some of the fabric did pull out from the previous pleat to become part of this pleat, so they just didn't wind up the right size. And then these ones down here, I mean, they're just too close together. Like, I can't think of any reason why you would want this depth of pleat that close together, except maybe like pleating an 18th century skirt into a bodice, maybe, but I don't think that this would really work for that because you have to fit it within the plaiter, and ideally I would think be no thicker than the gauge. So this wound up being the exact thickness of the gauge, but I think that is about like 5.5 or 6 inches, something like that. I have not measured it. So really this is designed for trim, not for skirts. So I don't know why you would want that deep. But there's our first section done. Again, not super impressed with that, but I suppose that means that it's time to move on to trial number 2. So next up we have cluster or space plates. The instructions for this say make groups of simple side plates, omitting bars to give the required spaces between the groups. There's not a picture example of this, so I don't know if they mean it to be more like what you see in this shell plate where it's like pleat, 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 space, pleat, 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 or if it's more like pleat, space, space, pleat, space, space, which would make sense for those deeper pleats. So I think that is what I'm going to try, at least to begin with. We'll see how long this strip can go since I cut off the pleats that I had already done. So this is now not the longest strip in the world, but let's go ahead and try that first method where we do a pleat, skip some, then do more pleats. So for this, I'm gonna again do the deep pleats. And so I'm gonna do 1, and then I think with the width of these pleats, I think I'm gonna skip 3. So let's turn this over and see what that equates to. Gonna again push those away from me. Okay, let's see what this looks like. The removal process of these pleats is just not the best. Now, I don't know if this is something that has been affected by age or what, but this metal is very grippy, like it's quite rough. So it really tries to hold on to the fabric within. So this time I feel like we got a much better result. We are having our pleats, they're still not, I mean, they're kind of rounded at the edge, but I think by doing that whole take them out and press them again, but we still have irregularities too. I mean, that is definitely irregular. We can just scoot that back a little maybe. Okay, this did give a much better result though, and it looks more like a pleating pattern that you'd actually use, say in Victorian skirt trim or something like that. You could then just sew across the top, and that did make that quite easy. I do wonder if you are hemming this first. I've got a selvage edge right here, but if you're hemming this first, I feel like the spaces in between the lines on here are quite small, and the hem would have a difficult time actually fitting in there. So I do certainly wonder about that, because again, the selvage was fine, but not so sure about a hem. So anyway, I would call this one a success. Our space plates, I think that that worked quite well. Let's move on to the next one, shell plates. So for our shell plates, the instructions say make clusters of simple plates with spaces between. Pull up the material along one edge as illustrated before pressing on the wrong side. When pressing, place end of plaiter on blocks or books as previously directed. Remove from plaiter, stitch on the top edge, and tack shells in place. So this is the illustration of our shell pleats right here. So it kind of comes up all funky. I'm not really sure what you would use that in, but it's interesting, I guess. I also don't know how well it's going to work. So it doesn't specify the gauge on this, but judging from the picture, it is almost certainly using the small gauge. So it also doesn't specify how many pleats are in the cluster, but by counting this, I think we've got 7? Yeah, there's 7 in each cluster. So this is one of the reasons that I didn't worry about the cluster plates from the last one. We're making them now. So we are going to try 7 clusters with the small gauge. Ooh, see, now this fabric strip is actually a little wider than my last one, and so I wonder if that is going to have much of an effect. I almost would say if you are working at an end like this, like tape it to the bottom of the thing. Almost seems like it'd be easier than trying to hold this tiny little bit. It is definitely much harder to hold the fabric in place when it is longer than the gauge, or also longer than my pinky finger. I actually feel like doing this sort of thing with the gauge, where you're like drawing a pencil line, almost seems easier. Okay, it also doesn't say how many to skip at this point, but it looks like it's smaller than the shell area, so it looks like maybe skip to about there, and then start again. Okay, so there's our 7 space 7 space 7, and our spaces are 5. Hopefully I counted all of that right. And now we are going to flip that over and press it in place. Oh, I almost forgot. Whoops, we were supposed to rest this on books. So here, let's rest this on some books. So then it directs us to remove it from the plaiter. Also doesn't say why we're stacking this on books. Who knows? But now we get to remove this from the plaiter and then tack the shells in place after you stitch along the top row. These are actually coming out a little nicer. So it does not, in this case, say to press from the right side. However, these are still very round. So I think we just have to press to get them actually flat. But these are a lot more regular than the ones that we were getting the first time. So maybe it's just that I'm getting better at using this. I'm gonna go stitch across the top here and see if we can get that shell look going. It doesn't say how to actually get the shell look, like where to actually pull from or anything like that, but I feel like looking at the diagram, like we're pulling from maybe around here, and then like this stays down, and this goes there? I don't know, you guys. This doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe this is something that you have to have actually a shorter thing of pleats, because this is not doing what the picture is wanting it to do. I guess maybe something like that ish. I'll bring you around so you can see the front end of that after I stick a couple pins in. That's it from the front end. I don't really feel like we're quite like the picture here, but I can see similarities. So I think that this has to be done on a narrower strip of fabric here. But let's go ahead and move on to our next pleat. Next up is ruching. Alternately make 3 simple plaits and omit 3 bars. Holding the plaits in place, pull up the material of each space along both edges as illustrated, which looks like this. Press on the underside of plaiter. When pressing, place end of plaiter on blocks or books as previously directed. So this is the weird thing that we're getting here. I've never seen ruching like this before, but this is apparently their form of ruching. So you do 3, though there's definitely 4 in this illustration, but it says do 3 plaits and then skip 3 bars and continue and then pull these bits out of the side. So let's give this a try with the rest of our wider one here. I think I'm going to start a little bit farther from the edge here. We'll start maybe on this second one and see if that can help us not pull out. So I think it looks like we push everything in to begin with, and it says to do 3 and then skip 3 and then do 3 again. Maybe what they meant is make 3 pleats as opposed to use 3 spaces. So I'm gonna make 1 more pleat, and there we go. Now we'll skip 3. 1, 2, 3. So it says holding these all in place. So I'm gonna put my hands here, pull up the material here, and it looks like you want all of the edges up, like an inch worth. And then I understand why this one's going on books, because now we've got volume on the underside. So we're gonna flip this over and put it on our books and press those pleats in place. So that is what it looks like on the underside. Got the last bit of our damp cloth here. I'm not sure if I should only be pressing the middle. There are still some bits of the ends that wound up still kind of coming through the pleater. Let's try that. Definitely looks weird. I feel like these got a bit loose, these middle portions right here. It also doesn't specify how to like stitch this one in place or even what you would use it for. But again, kind of like the very first one, we've got really like rounded pleats here. So I feel like, again, we have to press down at least some of it from this side. But here we've got to be careful because we don't want to press the sides down. So I'm not really sure how you would do this if it's like a long thing of them, because irons are generally, you'd have to use like a mini iron or maybe the side of the iron. And this one, again, we're getting quite a lot of irregularity. So yeah, I don't know where to stitch this down because, you know, does not say, but I think that is the general look that we were supposed to achieve. Looks like that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next one, which is princess collar. So for the princess collar, because it is like an Elizabethan ruff, it actually doesn't involve any pressing. It says use wide side of gauge for making these plaits. Pass a needle through one edge of goods on top of the plaiter and remove without pressing. So let's give that a try. It doesn't say again if we're like skipping any, so I'm just gonna go for every one, I guess. The problem that I'm really finding is that by going for every one, there's just no way to hold down this fabric without getting in the way of pushing it down. And so therefore it is coming out of where it goes, particularly when using the wide gauge. It's not nearly as much of an issue with the narrow gauge, but a little bit. But I think I will find that these are not at all uniform. Okay, so obviously that didn't make that many with the wide ones for this, but I think we have enough where I can pass a needle through. I'm kind of surprised that it says to pass it through the top. I feel like it would be easier to pass it through the bottom, but whatever. So I'm not gonna try and do this nicely or anything. I'm literally just gonna go like this and pass this needle through. Okay, it's all on the needle. And we are left with that. Now, of course, to make a real ruff, I'm pretty sure that you need to secure that in more than just like the top, because otherwise this is just going to come apart. So it's been a while since I took a ruff making class. I did take one once at costume college, but just for the sake of right now, I'm going to pass this through. You can see the irregularities in the depth of these also. So again, not even. But I'm just going to pass that through and anchor it on the other side. And also this didn't work as a ruff because, I mean, it makes a nice fan, but like with no heat at all, it's flat on that edge. So yeah, princess collar, not so much. It still needs to be pressed. Actually, it probably would have been done great being pressed because these things make rounded tops and I probably would have gotten a nice little ruff out of that, but not based on their instructions. Next up, we have the oak leaf, which looks like this funky little pattern here. So to do the oak leaf, place strip of material on plaiter, sloping it away from you towards the left. Make 4 simple plaits. Now slope it abruptly towards the right, allowing the fullness to form as indicated in the illustration, and make 4 simple plaits to the right. Again, turn it to the left, this time pushing the excess fullness made by the turn to the underside of plaiter, and make 4 simple plaits. Repeat. Press on underside of plaiter. When pressing, place end of plaiter on blocks or books as previously directed. Sloping it away from you to the left. I'm gonna go with that's what they mean. And these look like they are ones using the small side of the gauge. So 1, 2, 3. This is so much easier with this narrow strip. Oh my gosh. And 4. And then it says to go like this and slope to the right. I feel like I probably should have started this in the middle maybe, but hopefully this will work. So now when we pull it again this way, it says we have to poke this excess fullness to the underside of the plaiter. I guess that just goes, yeah, like right in there. Okay, so then we go back over here, do 1, 2, 3, whoop, missed one. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then obviously I'm not like regular with this because they're ending in different heights over here, but then we bring this back over here again. And 1, 2, 3, 4. But this time again, we're bringing it back this way and poking the excess down in there. And going with 1, 2. We ran out, but okay, that looks like the gist. Now we're going to flip this over, put it on their books, and press. That's what it looks like on the back side. Okay, let's see what that turns into. So like, it looks kind of interesting now, but I feel like this is one that really did not, I don't know, perform well as far as actually getting these pleats to lay right. Makes me feel like they ought to be pressed on this side before taking out. Yeah, these are not good. This is a mess. Like, what the heck? So basically, this one, you literally just have to reassemble the whole thing. None of these are regular. And this one again feels like, how the heck do you hold it in place? So this one I would say is a failure. Maybe one of the most failures of them. It looks nothing like this. And I'm sure that part of this is that because this shouldn't be pressed on the top so that you get these little trumpets coming out, or I guess these little oak leaves coming out. But to actually press the pleats, you have to press the pleats, because pressing from the bag did not work at all. So this is my main takeaway so far from this. I know we still have some other ones to try on this, but the thing is, this isn't flat. So you get flutes, you don't get pleats. So I think a paper pleating board is really going to be your best solution here. I'm pretty sure Jalea Ward has a good video on that, so if so, I will link that down below. But yeah, this is not what you want for pleats. It does not work. Simplicity Plaiter, you are not simple. But let's go ahead just for kicks and try the last few and see what happens. So we're going to move on to the scallop plate. The scallop plate looks like this, and we're basically doing pretty similar to what we just did, which is make like oak leaf, except make 6 simple plates to the right and 6 to the left, pushing the excess fullness to the underside at each turn. But I think we are doing this at a sort of zigzag shape like we did with the oak leaf. So let's give that a try. I'm starting in the center this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're coming back this way, but this, I guess, is all getting pressed down into there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this strip isn't very long, so we're not going to get that much going in here. One. Okay, we'll go with 1. So we only got a little bit of a zigzag on this one because I didn't start with a long enough strip, but let's go ahead and press that from the other side. Okay, let's see if this one comes out as badly as the oak leaf. It's not great. Not as bad as the oak leaf, but not great. Again, you basically have to reassemble, particularly at the points where it turns. That looks like a mess. So next up, we're going to go for something a little bit more standard. We are going to go for the box plating, and the instructions for that read, make 1 simple plate, omit as many bars as are necessary to give the desired width of box plate, then make 2 simple plates, omit bars again, then make the 2 simple plates, and so on. Turn plaiter upside down, press the 2 adjoining simple plates in opposite directions away from each other. So again, our instructions seem to be using the small side of this gauge, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to make 1 plate, and then let's go ahead and skip, I don't know, 3. Make 2 plates. We're veering. And then skip 3. 2 plates. I don't know why we're veering so much. Okay, we'll stop there. Looks nice from this side. Let's go ahead and press this in place. This one does not involve being set up on books. This one I feel like is a little bit more difficult with the pressing cloth because we need these to go in opposite directions. So I almost feel like maybe if I give it a little bit of a pre-press while I can see them, that may help. So that at least I can then put the pressing cloth on and have them go the right directions. But this also doesn't really feel like it's doing much. It is way easier on this to press plates away from you than it is to press them towards you, just FYI. Okay, let's now put our cloth on and hope that that will have helped. Let's see. This one's definitely gonna need a lot of pressing in place. So this one looks pretty reasonable. Like, I mean, it does seem like we have even plates, and I think they're actually even Well, they are even on both sides, but you really get a lot of weird ridges in that side. But we do have even pleats. The only thing is that, I don't know about you, but this is not the box pleat that I am familiar with. I am familiar with box pleats that, in the historical sense at least, they always come together and meet like that. So this is an interesting, like, every other pleat, but I wouldn't actually call this a box pleat. I would just call this an every other pleat, I guess. So I suppose this was semi-successful. So there should be 3 more for me to demonstrate. The box ruffle, which is the double box plate, and then also the plaited ruffle and to flute or gopher ruffle. But I was just reading them through. In those last 2, I literally cannot figure out what they're talking about. Plaited ruffle says, plait the goods of the ruffle on the edge of the plaiter and press on the wrong side. I have no idea what they're talking about. I think maybe they're saying to start with something that's already ruffled. That is my best guess, but I have no idea. And likewise, to flute or gopher ruffle, plait the ruffle on the edge of the plaiter with the narrow side of gauge, press on the top. Again, not getting that. I mean, if it's fluting, then that's basically what this does, is fluting. So that's my best guess for that. I can try that. But for now, let's do the box ruffle or double box plate, which says, make like box plating, except make 4 simple plates instead of 2, and press 2 plates in one direction and 2 in the other. When pressing, place end of plaiter on blocks or books as previously directed. And it looks like for this that they're not intending us to press all the way across, that this should be a ruffle down at the bottom instead of having like the box plating be all the way straight. So we will give that a try. So like the first box plate, I am going to start with 1. It doesn't mention starting with 1 on this, but figure let's give that a try. Actually, you know what? Let's start with 2 since everything seems to be doubled here. We'll start with 2. And then we skipped as many as were necessary. So I'm going to again skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll skip 1, 2, 3, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll end with 1 and 2. Okay. Okay, let's give that a go. Flip it over. So it's really no joke as far as like getting in there to separate them. I'm gonna do what we did last time and kind of press them without the pressing cloth first. This one, remember when I said about taping this? This could really use a tape anchor because every time I go to press it, it pulls it out. So this is a deeper pleat. I'm not sure why we are elevated for this. I feel like it's really causing the undersides to just dip back in. So actually, you know what? I am going to ignore that instruction. Take the books away because I think we need a hard surface to actually get these to be where we want them to be. And they've already fallen out. Well, first one's already fell out. I don't care enough to fix them. Let's see how these did. Well, as previously mentioned, this first one I knew had totally fallen out while we were trying to have it on the books. So I don't know why this one said books when the other one didn't, but books was not the right idea. Oh, I just remembered why it said on the books. It was because we were supposed to leave the lower part loose like a ruffle, which I forgot about. So I did not do that, obviously. I pleated them all the way down. However, this is kind of a nice look with the double pleats and everything. I feel like this one is relatively successful. I mean, it's not what it was trying to be, but that does look pretty nice. And I feel like that would make a nice little pleat trim on a Victorian outfit. So yeah, it's not how it was supposed to turn out, but I would still call it a success. I'm going to attempt to do what I think they mean by the flute or gopher ruffle, which is the one that just says like basically press it or put it in place with the gauge and then just press it on top. I'm curious to see if this is what I think it is, which is literally just fluting. and what that will look like. So we'll just take this last little scrap of our hot pink cotton, which I guess I should have mentioned, I'm using Kona quilting cotton for all of this, and you will see what this was left over from in my next video. Maybe for good measure, we also press with the cloth. Let's see if we've got some nice fluting going on. Well, I don't know if nice is necessarily the best word, but we definitely got some successful fluting. I have always been curious as to how is fluting attached. So if you are familiar with working with fluting and you know how that would be attached, like is it just kind of smashed down? Is it folded over and pressed down? How it's attached to something else, please drop me a comment and let me know how that works. But yeah, there's the fluting. That was actually super successful. We don't even have to press it on both sides because this is for fluting, not really for pleating. I mean, we had a few that worked, but not overall. Let's take a look at all of these samples all together. So here we go. Here's all of our samples all together. We have the oak leaf, the shell plate, ruching, scallop plate, regular standard pleating, or flat plate, I guess they called it, with both the narrow and then also the wider, deeper, or not wider, but just deeper plates. And then we have the spaced plates right here, and the box plating, the princess collar that totally didn't, and the box ruffle that I forgot to actually ruffle, but it makes a lovely double box plate, and the fluting. So there's all of those different trials from our Simplicity Plaiter. And overall, I mean, successes, I think this is totally a success, space plate. So this is probably the most common form of plating that you're going to need, and it worked for that. So that is great. The double box plate, even though it wasn't what it was supposed to be, it's lovely. I think that that's really nice. Honestly, this, if we weren't trying for this silly shell pattern, I think that this turns out to be a really nice pattern with these sort of spaced clustered plates. I think that that looks really lovely, and I can easily see putting that on a Victorian dress. So I would call that a success. And then we have the others. Not so much successes, but hey, it's a thing. We tried it, and that is the Simplicity Plaiter. So I hope that that was at least somewhat interesting to you. Do you have a favorite method of pleating? If so, please let me know down in the comments. What is it that you like to do? Do you like to do freehand? Do you like to do fork pleats? Do you have a pleating board? Do you maybe have one of those like fluting irons that like cranks it through and does all the work for you and looks all fancy? I want to know. Let me know down in the comments what is your favorite method of pleating. And also let me know if you happen to have this product and have any tips on using it and maybe getting some of those different types of pleats that didn't work so great in today's trial. So anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs out on Tuesdays and other costuming content like this out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patron, Sharon. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!